Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about my Homeyears portable power station, solar generator, whatever you want to call this thing. Basically, this is a battery pack with a built-in pure sine wave inverter generator. Now, the one I own is a 518 watt hour, so it's actually pretty hefty as far as a lot of the cheap ones go. Now, I am talking about this because if you're interested in one for under $200, there are some options out there, but you need to understand each one has its advantages and disadvantages. And this is very important. Even if the listing tells you, if you're in the United States or any country that says you use 60 hertz, even if the listing tells you that the machine produces 60 hertz, the one thing you need to see is right here on the bottom or the back where it states 60 hertz, which is 110 volts, 60 hertz. Now, the reason I'm saying this is a lot of stuff online will say 60 hertz in the listing. I have one pulled up here and I will show it to you. Now, in the listing it says 60 hertz, but if you go here, by AC output, it says 220 50 hertz. Now, this will put out 50 hertz at 220 volts, but I don't see somebody connecting both plugs together to get 220s. This was purchased for one reason, only one reason, to see if it can run a chest freezer. Now, because the battery pack is so small, I don't foresee this running it 10, 15, 20 hours. That's not what's going to happen here. But this does have a 500 watt power inverter. This is the plug to my chest freezer. Now, if you're going to do this, make sure your chest freezer is already froze. Make sure my fridge is still on. Yep. Because what you want to do is you want to have something that if the lights go out in the middle of the night or at night, you want to be able to keep your food good. Now, this is a Arctic King 3.5 cubic foot chest freezer. Now, every time I see videos on these, people are trying to run ARB fridges. That's fine, but can you run something like this? We're fixing to find out. Now, these have push buttons that you have to push in. And another disadvantage of this, unless you have the DC or AC on, the display does not show. I really should have got my voltometer out so I could test this while I was doing this. But it is showing 100%. My chest freezer is plugged into it. I believe I just heard the compressor kick. I'm not sure. Let's move this over here for a sec. As you can see, it is froze. Now, a lot of people have issues with purchasing something like this and then finding out it can't run whatever it is you're trying to run. Now, a lot of these have like 300 watt, 250, 200 watt, 300 watt inverters built in. If you're trying to run something that's 300 watts, you definitely need something higher than a 300 watt because you are going to lose some power through the inverter itself. I was watching a video not that long ago. The person had a 300 watt power inverter, power station, solar generator, whatever, and they couldn't run something that was 300 watts. And my advice to them was, one, either your inverter's not strong enough, two, your batteries aren't charged enough, or three, the power inverter you purchased is 50 hertz. Now let's go over this real quick. What happens if you try to run a 60 hertz appliance over a 50 hertz power station or solar generator? It loses literally 17% of all power going through the plugs. So what happens is, if you're trying to run a 60 hertz off a 50 hertz, what's happening is basically you're going to get 90 watts instead of 110 watts or volts, excuse me, 90 volts and not 110 volts out of your plugs, because there will be a 17% power loss, a power drop. It will also try to pull an extra 17%. If you have induction motors, transformers, things like that, it can mess them up. And that's not something you want. If you're relying on a battery pack, and that's what I call these, I understand they're considered solar generators. There's where the solar port charges in, goes in charging. Now, this home use is a little bit different than a lot of the other power stations I've seen. It's a little bit different than another one I own. I will talk about that another time. That one is 515 watt hours. This is 518 watt hours. The difference is my other one actually has a plug like this on it, while this does not. Now, the cable that comes with this for the car charger does fit the DC plug. And what you can do is you can actually cut this cable or remove this end. I do not advise charging this with a car charger. I mean, you're talking about 11 to 12 hours, if not longer, charging it through this. So I would actually just cut this cable and put something like this on the cable if you need a 12 volt port. It will not plug anything like this in. Not on this one. And you can make, you can buy two 12 volt adapters, kind of like cigarette plugs here, and just put two of them together, and that way you can, you know, leave this, put just like that, and then you'll have one on this end, and that way you can plug in whatever you want on this end if you don't want to cut your cable. Nothing like this will work on this because it does not have the power port or cigarette lighter port, whatever you want to call it. Now, my freezer is on. Now, I can't say how long this will actually run for. I've never tested this. Basically, I got this because I wanted, if our power went out in the middle of the night, I just wanted to get something long enough running so our freezer would not thaw out before I could hook up our solar outside. Since my solar is outside and we do rent, I can't put holes in the walls, which means I have to run from a power inverter outside through the door over to here to keep everything good. I do not want to leave my DC to AC power inverters outside, so they are unhooked. And in the middle of the night, or if something happens, I do not want to have to be out there, you know, trying to hook this up. That's why we have this and another little solar generator power station, whatever you want to call it. I'll show you a picture of the other one because, and it's not this one. This is one you avoid. Right there on the back it says 50 hertz. Now these are all under $200. Here's a picture of the one you avoid. If you're in the United States, you do not want something like this. This puts out 50 hertz, and what happens is they will go, if you go down in the item description, it will say 60 hertz. You cannot rely on this. You have to actually see the tag on the machine, and that says 50 hertz. Okay? So if you're getting a 50 hertz power station or solar generator, you are asking for trouble. Okay, I can close this. Now I want you to see something. Here's what I'm talking about as far as the 12 volt power ports. You can buy 2 of these for like $9, put a wire between them, and just use your car power plug to plug into one, and on the other end will be another one, and then you can use this one wire without cutting it, unless you just want to cut it, like this, and you would have one on each end. I do recommend a 10 amp fuse in the middle. So 2 of these, one on this end, one on this end. That way you can just plug it in right here, and you will have a 12 volt cord for things like this. Something else you may want to consider getting that these do not come with is a solar charging cable. Now this is for a Bluetti EB70S or EB3A. This should fit your average power stations. Most of these have actually the same size when it comes to these solar charging cables. Also, if you're going to charge with solar, most of these are very slow when charging. They are limited to generally 70 watts. Okay, I don't need that open. I need this open. I'm going to show you what I did. Now, I went through and chose everything that you may or may not need if you want a power station. I'm also going to show you pictures of the other power station I have. I will be running testing on that probably next week. Alright, these are power pigtails, 8mm plugged bare wire. You can generally use something like this to hook up solar to one of these power stations. I'm not sure about this. I will know. I did order some of these. I wanted to see if these would fit. Honestly, just hooking up 2 power ports between some cables with a fuse will probably be a much better idea than trying to find the right size for the power stations. Here I'm talking about right here. 2 of these, some cables between positive and positive, negative and negative, with a fuse on the positive side, a 10 amp fuse. And then you could actually just use this, the cable that came with it, to actually get you a 12 volt port on this machine, because it does not have one. This right here is what I'm talking about. This is the exact make and model I have. This is from a few days ago. I did find the seller, and right now these are $168. Make sure they have 2 different types. Make sure you want the 518 watt hour, because they do have 2 different ones that look identical. And it's $168 for the one I have now. Here's the measurements. I'm not worried about measurements. Alright, here's where it says what it should run. Now here it says, just like on the machine itself, 220 volt is 50 hertz. 110 volt is 60 hertz. Solar charging 12 volts 70 watts. Okay? Now, I will go through the charging of this, how long it takes. It takes a long time to charge. Now, here's some of the things that it can run. This is what caught my eye. If it can run a mini fridge at 50 watts, it should be able to run my chest freezer that uses less than 50 watts for at least 10 hours. That's all I cared about. I don't plan on using this for anything else other than the chest freezer. Right here is where it tells you how long this actually takes to charge. Now, I do believe this because just charging it off the wall it takes 8 to 9, even 10 hours sometimes. Solar charging, 9 to 10 hours. This is what they consider a solar generator. This is what they consider a portable power station that you can run or charge off solar. Problem is, if you're outputting more than you're inputting on the solar, then it's going to take forever to charge this thing up. This is why I don't recommend you charge it in a car. 10 to 12 hours. Most people I know do not drive around in their car for 10 to 12 hours. They just don't. So if you're going to do this, I recommend either solar charging or the wall outlet. Now, unfortunately, with this, along with any other portable power station or solar generator, they're limited to amount of solar they can come in or bring in. Now, what I would recommend to people that live in apartments that want something like this is get a 100-watt panel. But do not face it south. Face it east or west. Now, yes, it will take longer to charge, but anything over 70 watts, a lot of these things actually shut down, so they will not charge. You can find 70-watt foldable panels, but they are not cheap. If you can find one on the cheap, great. But remember, this is going to take 9 to 10 hours on solar to charge. And here we talk about all the ports, all the plugs. Once again, it says 220 volt for 50 hertz. So if you hook this up to a 220 system using both these plugs, that's 50 hertz, or 110 at 60 hertz. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen if you try to use 110 on each one of these, if it would drop it down to 50 hertz. Me, personally, I don't care, because the only thing I'm worried about is running our chest freezer. You may worry about other things. See, the DC output here are these little holes right here. Those put out 12 volts, 10 amps. Solar charging, 12 volts, 70 watts. USB output, 5 volt, 3 amps. Here's what I found is like on Amazon. See, they have the 300 watt one, which is $189. Okay? Then this, the 518 watt hour, was $500 on Amazon. Can you believe that? Would I pay $500 for one of these? Absolutely not. Is it worth $200? Sure. $500? No. So shop around, see what you can find. Of course, here's charging through USB. Here is the solar plug right there. This is the other power station that I will be showing you. Not this week, next week sometime. This is a North Pole light. This is a 60 hertz. This does have the 12 volt plug, has USB, basically everything this one behind me has, but it only has one grounded plug and one ungrounded plug. Now this is 60 hertz. I made sure any power stations I buy, solar generator, whatever the hell you want to call them, it carries 60 hertz. Now this is $185.99, but it also comes with the 12 volt port. We don't have to add one. I'll be showing you this next week. Probably next weekend. And once again, I got this straight from the site that I purchased this from. Both these sellers, I do not get paid if you buy one of these. I made no money. They don't care whether I make a video on this or not. So, if you decide to purchase one of these, that's on you. Like I said, I don't get paid. And right here, 110 volt is 60 hertz and 500 watts. That's what you care about, right there. Unless you can see a tag or They specify, literally, and you can actually email them. Before you buy any power station, email them. Ask them if it's 50 or 60 hertz. If you're in the US and some other countries, you need 60 hertz. But since a lot of these are made in China, a lot of these are made for 50 hertz. Of course, this has solar charging too. Now we're back to this one. This is the one I said do not purchase. This is the one that is 50 hertz. You do not want this power station. You do not want this solar generator. It is 50 hertz. It states that on the tag, on the machine itself. No matter what the specifications here say, you don't go by what they're saying here. You don't go by seller description, item description, whatever. You go by literally right here. This says 220 at 50 hertz. So now, do I know if this puts out 110 at 60 hertz? I have no idea because they don't tell you that. It just says 220 at 50 hertz, 500 watts. Avoid 50 hertz systems if you live in the US. Make sure if you're getting a solar generator or something like that, you get one with inverter large enough. This is still at 100%. Now, I may end up doing a day test. Everything's still frozen. No issues. To see how long this lasts. But if it lasts 10 hours or longer, I would have to shut it off. I will be happy if this literally just lasted 6 to 7 hours, keeping my food good. Like I said, this does have 12 volt DC plugs right here, but you will have to make something if you want to use plugs that go into a fitting like this. If you want to use plugs like this for a laptop like this, you will have to make something that will plug into that 12 volt to get you power out of it. That includes powering our R&B fridges, things like that use 12 volt, because they all use plugs like this. And like I say, building some little cheap thing so you don't have to cut your wire over there to make one of these, just building a cheap thing with a couple of power port ends and a fuse on it, so you can just plug it in here backwards, plug that in. That'll get you power. It also comes with a bag, which, you know, getting that thing in the bag in and out is very tough. That bag is very tight. But this is the Homeyears 518 watt hour portable power station, or solar generator, however you want to call it. It does have a light. I'm not going to turn the light on. It does work. It's pretty bright. It's like a 1 watt bulb or something like that to save power. Here is the AC. To get it on, you push in and it will stay in. To turn it off, you push in and let it go and it comes out. It's a push button system. Here is DC. I would not run AC and DC at the same time. If you have things that can run off DC, DC uses way less power than AC because it does not need to go through the inverter system. But anyway, this works fine. If you want me to hook this up over the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and just let this run and see how long this power station will power this, as you can tell it is without an issue, then let me know in the comments. If you would like to purchase either this or the other power station that I will be showing you probably next weekend, or if you want more information on them, if you want me to leave the sellers, then let me know and I will post a link in the my description of my video, whatever, to each one of the sellers, this one and the other seller that sells the other power stations, especially the one, not stations, but this one and the home light, not home light, damn it, this is home years, I keep getting stuff confused. Is North Pole light, North light. Is he? Where is it? Yeah, North Pole light. Like I said, I will be doing a full test on this and showing you this probably in a couple weeks. Maybe sooner. It depends. But if you want more information about this one, that one, I have not tested the pass-through capacities of these yet because I really don't need to. Like I said, these are strictly for backup power to make sure either I can run my fridge or my chest freezer if the lights go out and I don't want to end up having to hook on my solar. So if you would like to talk to the seller, or if you would like to purchase one of these, that's up to you. I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying don't do it. Personally, I prefer to have a solar system where my batteries will charge much faster. These do take a long time to charge. Even off the wall plug, they take quite a bit of time. So, do I prefer something that can charge much faster? Absolutely. But if you have something like this in an emergency situation and you have a chest freezer, depending on the size of the chest freezer, how much power it pulls now, can you use one of these to make it light through the night or a day, or, you know, whatever you want to do with it. Both of these power stations are under $200. I always try to keep it on the cheap end. This one is probably the best deal because it does have the 12-volt port, and it's only, you know, like 20 bucks more. This is $185.99. But if you're willing to spend the money to make a 12-volt plug or 12-volt port, this is a good system. So if you're willing to spend the money to, you know, if you need a 12-volt that is not these little tiny holes, but you need something like this to plug this into, yeah, you know, you can make something reasonably cheap for probably $15-20, or you can just spend the extra $15-20 and get one that already has one on it. But I have no issues with, like I said right here, this already has a 12-volt port. I have no issues with the one that's behind me now. It is a good power station. It is 500 watts, 518 watt hours. It does run my chest freezer. I have no issues with it. The only issue I have with this at all is it did come with a bag, and it is very tight getting this in and out of this bag. I don't know if this is supposed to protect this foil from either an EMP, or if it's just to help keep it if the battery explodes or something. I don't know. But, you know, like I say, it is very tight getting this thing in and out of this bag. But I do recommend you leave it in the bag when not in use, so you don't get dirt all up in your components. Alright, that's it. I'm fixing to go. If you want more information, I will put the links for where I got this and the other one. I will talk about the other one probably next week, maybe later this week. If you want me to do a time test on this on my chest freezer this weekend, I can do that. If you want that, leave it in the description below in the comments, comment section, and I could do it for probably 9 to 10 hour test and see how long it actually lasts. Now remember, this is a 3.5 cubic foot Arctic King chest freezer. And that has not even budged since I plugged this in and turned this on. So, if you want a complete test on how long it'll run, let me know in the comments, and I will do that this weekend when my girlfriend's at work. And, you know, next weekend I will probably do the other power station. But these are solar generators, that's what they're considered. These charge extremely slowly. Very slowly. So even having solar on this, unless you have this maxed out at 70 watts and you're only pulling out like 50 watts and less than an amp, you're going to lose power out of this while using it. Unless it has passed through, and I have not checked that yet. Because I have no need to check it. I apologize. I really have no need to check that. But if you're in an apartment or somewhere you can't put up solar, something like this may help you if you have like a small fridge like this or a small chest freezer. Like I said, 3.5 cubic foot. If this thing can make it through the night, I'd be happy with the cost of this, which was reasonably cheap. As I believe it was $168.99, something like that. I did screenshot the price of both these. $168 for this one right now. And this is the exact same one I have. Make sure it's the 518 watt hour. You do not want the smaller watt hour capacity one. You want the 500 watt DC to AC power inverter, and you want the 518 watt hour battery capacity. Anything under that makes no sense. Now, you cannot run a microwave or a coffee pot or anything off this. I mean, the inverter itself just isn't strong enough. It is only a 500 watt inverter. But for running something like a chest freezer, makes perfect sense. Alright, I'm fixing to go. I hope this, little review here helps somebody out. It does run this Arctic King 3.5 cubic foot chest freezer without an issue. Because one, chest freezers do not pull that much power. And if you can run an ARB fridge with a compressor in it off of one of these, I see no reason why I couldn't just run my Arctic King chest freezer off of it. Most people buy these for camping, hunting, running ARB fridges, things like that. But if you can run an ARB fridge with a compressor, yeah, it is having no issues with my Arctic King 3.5 cubic foot chest freezer. Alright, I'm fixing to go. I do have stuff to do today. I apologize. I would do a test today for you, but unfortunately I will have to go pick up my girlfriend from the hospital. She has some tests today, and so I will have to go pick her up. Is it a good deal on this one? For the 518 watt hour, 500 power inverter, 500 watt power inverter, for $168, that's an excellent deal. Even though it doesn't come with any way to hook up a 12 volt port. If you need a 12 volt port, you will have to make one for this. It is not that big of a deal. You can make one with the wire and everything you need for probably another $15 to $20 that you can buy online. Alright, that's it. I'm fixing to go. Everyone have a good day. Bye.